The admin building smelled like stale coffee and printer toner. Sarah Chun stood at the counter with her contractor badge clipped to her belt, watching the young corporal flip through her range qualification request form like it was written in a foreign language. The corporal looked up, confused. "Ma'am, this is for the precision rifle range. Are you sure you meant to fill out this form?" Sarah kept her expression neutral. "Yes, that's the correct form." The corporal glanced past her toward the hallway, then back down at the paperwork. His eyebrows pulled together. "Ma'am, that range is reserved for special operations personnel. SEALs train there. It's not really for contractors." "I understand," Sarah said. "I still need to qualify." The door behind the counter swung open. Colonel Matthews walked through, his Desert 10 uniform pressed sharp enough to cut glass. He had the build of someone who still ran 5 miles every morning despite 25 years of service. His eyes swept over Sarah with the kind of quick assessment that came from a career of sizing people up. "What's the holdup, Torres?" The corporal straightened. "Sir, this contractor is requesting access to Range 7. Colonel Matthews took the form from Torres, his jaw tightening as he read. He looked at Sarah, and something that wasn't quite a smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. It was the expression of someone watching a child asked to drive a car. "Ma'am, Range 7 isn't a civilian facility. Those aren't hunting rifles out there." "I'm aware, Kenneth. Do you have prior firearms experience?" "Yes, sir." The colonel waited, clearly expecting elaboration. When none came, he set the form down on the counter with deliberate slowness. "Ma'am, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but that range is for operators who've spent years developing precision shooting skills. It's not a place to learn." "I'm not looking to learn," Sarah said quietly. "I'm looking to qualify." Behind the colonel, Torres shifted his weight. Through the open door, voices echoed from down the hallway. 3 men in Navy working uniforms appeared, their SEAL tridents catching the fluorescent light. The one in front, a lieutenant commander with a thick neck and shoulders that strained his uniform, stopped when he saw the scene at the counter. "Everything all right, Colonel?" Matthews half-turned, just explaining range protocol to a contractor. The lieutenant commander's eyes moved to Sarah, then to the form on the counter. A grin spread across his face. He nudged the SEAL next to him. "Dalton, you seeing this?" Dalton, a lean man with sun-weathered skin and sharp blue eyes, leaned against the doorframe. His smile was all teeth. "Someone wants on 7? "Apparently," Matthews said. The word carried weight, like a judge announcing a verdict. The third SEAL, quiet until now, folded his arms across his chest. His name tape read Rodriguez. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but do you know what the qualification standards are for that range?" Sarah met his eyes. "I've read them. Reading them and shooting them are 2 different things," Dalton said. He looked at Matthews. "Sir, when's the last time a contractor even attempted 7? "Never," Matthews said flatly. "Because contractors don't have the training background required." His attention returned to Sarah. "Ma'am, the minimum qualification includes groupings under 2 MOA at 600 meters. Cold bore shots at 800. These aren't paper targets at 100 yards. "I understand the requirements," Sarah said. Dalton laughed, short and sharp. $20 says she doesn't make it past equipment check. Rodriguez shook his head slowly, still watching Sarah. "Those rifles aren't like anything you've handled before. They're built for precision work in combat conditions." The lieutenant commander stepped closer to the counter. "Ma'am, I think what everyone's trying to say is that this isn't personal. It's about safety. Range 7 has live-fire exercises with gear that costs more than most cars. We can't have someone out there who isn't qualified. That's why I'm requesting to qualify," Sarah said. Matthews picked up the form again, scanning it one more time. His expression hadn't changed. It was still that same patient skepticism, the look of someone explaining reality to someone who didn't want to hear it. He clicked his pen twice, then set it down without signing anything. "I'll tell you what," he said. "You get a commanding officer from a special operations unit to vouch for your shooting capability, and I'll consider processing this request. Until then, this isn't happening." Sarah didn't move, didn't argue. She simply nodded once, reached across the counter, and took the unsigned form back. "Thank you for your time, Colonel." She turned and walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard Dalton's voice, quieter now, but still audible. Man, I almost feel bad. She really thought she had a shot. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Outside, the morning sun was already heating the asphalt. Sarah walked across the parking lot toward the contractor housing units, the unsigned form folded in her hand. Somewhere on this base was someone who could vouch for her. She just had to find them, or she could show them herself. Sarah spent the next 2 days doing what contractors did best, paperwork and waiting. She filed equipment requests, attended safety briefings, and kept her head down. The base operated on its own rhythm, and she'd learned long ago that fighting that rhythm only made things harder. On the third morning, she was walking past the communications building when she heard a familiar voice. Colonel Matthews stood near the entrance, talking with a warrant officer she didn't recognize. They were discussing range schedules. 7's booked solid next week, the warrant officer said, checking his tablet. Got the new SEAL rotation coming through for Qual. Matthews nodded. Keep it that way. I want those slots reserved for operators only. Sarah kept walking, but the message was clear. The colonel hadn't forgotten about her request. He'd actively blocked it. That afternoon, she found herself in the base library, a small building tucked between the gym and the chapel. It was mostly empty except for a staff sergeant working on a laptop in the corner. Sarah pulled up the base directory on one of the public computers and started searching. Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison, Army Special Forces, currently assigned to Joint Operations Training. 2 silver stars, a bronze star with V device. More importantly, he was listed as the senior Army liaison on base, which meant he had pull across service branches. Sarah wrote down his office location and headed out. Morrison's office was in a prefab building on the east side of the base, the kind of temporary structure that had been there so long it had become permanent. His door was open. He sat behind a desk covered in file folders, his Special Forces tab visible on his uniform. He was older than Matthews, maybe late 40s, with gray starting to show at his temples. He looked up when Sarah knocked on the doorframe. Help you? Sir, I'm Sarah Chun, contractor working logistics support. I was hoping I could have a minute of your time. Morrison gestured to the chair across from his desk. Seat. What do you need? Sarah sat, keeping her posture straight. I've been trying to get range access for qualification on Range 7. Colonel Matthews requires a commanding officer from Special Operations to vouch for my capability before he'll process my request. Morrison leaned back in his chair, studying her. Range 7 is SEAL territory. Why do you need access there? I need to maintain my marksmanship qualifications. Range 7 has the facilities for precision rifle work at extended distances. Most contractors don't need that kind of capability, Morrison said. His tone wasn't dismissive, just observant. What's your background? Army, Sarah said. 8 years active duty. Deployed twice. Morrison's eyes narrowed slightly. Mose? 11 Bravo initially, Sarah said. Then I reclassed. To what? 18 Bravo, Sarah said quietly. Morrison sat forward, his full attention locked on her now. Special Forces Weapons Sergeant? Yes, sir. He was quiet for a moment, reassessing everything about the woman sitting across from him. Where do you deploy? Afghanistan. First tour in Kandahar province, second in Helmand. Morrison pulled his keyboard closer and typed something. His screen reflected in his glasses as he read. After a minute, he looked back at her. Says here you earned Expert Infantryman Badge, Air Assault, and Ranger School. Yes, sir. Also says you attended Army Sniper School at Fort Benning. Honor graduate. Why didn't you lead with that? Sarah shrugged slightly. People make assumptions either way. I figure my shooting would speak louder than my resume. Morrison almost smiled. He printed something from his computer, signed it with a pen from his desk, and held it out to her. This is a memo vouching for your capability. Take it to Matthews. He'll process your qualification request. Sarah took the paper, scanning it quickly. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Morrison said. You still have to actually qualify. Those SEALs don't miss much. If you're rusty, they'll know. I'm not rusty. Good, Morrison said. Because if you embarrass me by vouching for you and then washing out, I'll make sure you're auditing supply inventory for the rest of your contract. Understood, sir. She stood to leave, but Morrison's voice stopped her at the door. Chun? Sir? How long since you've shot precision at distance? For months, Sarah said, before I transitioned to contractor status. Morrison nodded. Matthews has range 7 locked down pretty tight, but range 4 has similar facilities. It's used for marksmanship instruction. If you want to shake off any rust before your official qual, I can get you access there tomorrow morning. Early, before anyone else is around. Sarah considered it. That would be helpful, sir. 0600. Don't be late. The next morning, Sarah arrived at range 4 at 0545. Morrison was already there, standing next to a rifle case on one of the shooting benches. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the air still carried the cool edge of night. You're early, Morrison said. Habit, sir. He opened the case, revealing a precision rifle. SR-25. Familiar with it? Yes, sir. Morrison handed her a data book and range card. Targets are set at 300, 500, and 700 meters. Wind is calm right now, but it'll pick up. Show me what you've got. Sarah loaded the magazine, checked the scope, and moved into position. The rifle felt right in her hands, the weight and balance exactly what her muscle memory expected. She settled behind the scope, controlled her breathing, and found her first target. The shot broke clean. 300 meters, center mass. She adjusted for the 500-meter target. Squeezed. Another hit. Morrison watched through a spotting scope, saying nothing. Sarah moved to the 700-meter target. The wind had started to pick up, just barely, but enough to matter. She calculated the correction, adjusted her hold, and fired. Hit, Morrison said. Upper thorax. He lowered the spotting scope. You weren't lying about not being rusty. Sarah cleared the rifle and stood. Thank you for the range time, sir. Matthews is going to process your request now that you have my voucher, Morrison said. But those SEALs are going to be watching you like hawks. They don't like being proven wrong. I'm not trying to prove anyone wrong, Sarah said. I just need to qualify. Morrison picked up the rifle case. Chun, you're about to walk into range 7 as the first contractor they've ever let through the door. And you're going to outscore most of them. Whether you're trying to prove them wrong or not, that's exactly what's going to happen. He started walking toward his vehicle, then stopped and looked back. And for what it's worth, I hope you do. Sarah returned to Colonel Matthews' office that afternoon with Morrison's signed voucher. Torres was behind the counter again, and when he saw her walk in, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or resignation. Back again, ma'am? She handed him the memo. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's voucher. Torres read it twice, then looked up at her with new curiosity in his eyes. He disappeared into the back office. Through the open door, she could hear muffled conversation. A minute later, Matthews emerged, reading the memo himself. The colonel's expression was harder to read now. The condescending patience from their first meeting had shifted into something more neutral, more professional. He set the memo on the counter. Morrison vouched for you. Yes, sir. He clicked his pen, looking at her range request form again. All right, I'll process this, but understand that range 7 has strict protocols. You'll need to complete equipment orientation with our range master, Staff Sergeant Carver. He'll verify you can handle the weapons systems safely before you're cleared for qualification. When can I schedule orientation? Carver's available tomorrow at 1300. Be on time. Sarah nodded. Thank you, Colonel. Matthews didn't respond. He just picked up the papers and walked back into his office. Torres watched her leave, shaking his head slightly. The next day, Sarah arrived at range 7 15 minutes early. The facility was more extensive than the other ranges on base. Multiple shooting positions stretched across a flat expanse of desert, with target berms visible in the distance. A small operations building sat near the entrance, and several SEALs were gathered outside, cleaning weapons and talking. They went quiet when she walked up. One of them, a broad-shouldered guy with a thick beard, straightened from his crouch. You lost. No, I'm here for equipment orientation with Staff Sergeant Carver. Another SEAL, younger with a fresh haircut, exchanged glances with his teammate. Carver does contractor orientations now. The bearded SEAL studied her more carefully. "You're the one who requested 7 access." Sarah didn't answer. She didn't need to. The door to the operations building opened, and a man in his mid-30s stepped out. He had the compact, efficient build of someone who'd spent years carrying heavy gear over long distances. His name, tape read Carver, and his expression was all business. "You Chun?" "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "Come on." Inside the operations building, the walls were covered with range maps, safety protocols, and qualification score sheets. Names filled the boards, most with SEAL team designations next to them. Carver pulled a rifle case from a locked cabinet and set it on the table. "This is the MK-13 Mod 7. You'll be qualifying with this platform. Familiar with it?" "Yes, Staff Sergeant." Carver's eyebrow raised slightly. "When's the last time you fired one?" "4 years ago. Different variant, same platform." He opened the case and began explaining the weapon system anyway, his voice settling into the rhythm of someone who'd given this brief 100 times. Sarah listened, not interrupting, even though she already knew most of what he was saying. She understood the game. Carver needed to confirm she wasn't going to hurt herself or anyone else on his range. After 20 minutes of going through operation, maintenance, and safety procedures, Carver finally paused. "All right, show me how you load and make ready." Sarah picked up the rifle with practiced efficiency. Her movements were smooth, automatic. Chamber check, magazine insertion, bolt operation, safety verification. It took less than 30 seconds. Carver watched without comment. "Clear the weapon." She did, faster than before. Carver nodded slowly. He wasn't smiling, but the skepticism in his eyes had diminished. "You've handled these before." "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "Where'd you train?" "Fort Benning. Army Sniper School." Carver was quiet for a moment, processing that information. Then he closed the rifle case and locked it back in the cabinet. "Your qualification is scheduled for Friday." "Oh, 800. That gives you 2 days to get your gear squared away and review the course of fire." "Understood." "Chin, one more thing." His tone shifted slightly, becoming less formal. "The SEALs who train here are some of the best precision shooters in the military. They've earned their place on this range through years of training and combat deployments. They're going to be watching you Friday. Some of them are hoping you fail." "I understand, Staff Sergeant." "Do you?" "Because if you wash out, it confirms every assumption they've already made about contractors, about women on tactical ranges, about people who don't belong." Sarah met his eyes. "And if I don't wash out?" Carver almost smiled. "Then things get interesting." She left the operations building and walked back past the group of SEALs. They were still there, still watching. The bearded one called out as she passed. "How'd orientation go?" "Fine," Sarah said without stopping. "See you Friday," he said. His tone made it clear he thought Friday would be the last time he'd see her on Range 7. Sarah spent the next 2 days preparing. She reviewed the qualification standards, studied the range cards, and did dry fire practice in her room. The course of fire was straightforward. Multiple positions, multiple distances scored on accuracy and time. The standards weren't impossible, but they weren't easy either. They were designed to separate people who could shoot from people who could shoot under pressure. Thursday evening, she was walking back from the dining facility when she saw Dalton and Rodriguez near the base exchange. They were in civilian clothes, clearly off duty. Dalton spotted her and elbowed Rodriguez. "Hey, contractor, you ready for tomorrow?" Sarah kept walking. "As ready as I need to be." Rodriguez caught up to her. "No offense, but most people who've never shot 7 before get nervous. The distances are longer than they look. Wind's tricky out there." "I'll manage." Dalton grinned. "We'll see. Got a bet going. 10 guys say you don't complete the course. 3 say you might scrape by with a passing score. Want to know how many think you'll actually post a competitive number?" Sarah stopped and looked at him. "How many?" "None," Dalton said. "Not a single person thinks you're going to score competitive with the teams." "Then I guess tomorrow will be educational," Sarah said. She walked away, leaving them standing there. Behind her, she heard Rodriguez say something to Dalton, his voice too quiet to make out. But she didn't need to hear it. She knew exactly what they were thinking. Friday morning would tell them everything they needed to know. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and a light breeze from the southwest. Sarah woke at 0500, went through her normal routine, and arrived at range 7 at 0730. The sun was already climbing, heating the desert floor. More people were present than she'd expected. A dozen SEALs stood near the operations building, ostensibly preparing their own gear, but clearly waiting to watch. Colonel Matthews was there too, standing off to the side with his arms crossed. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison had also shown up, leaning against a vehicle near the parking area. Carver met her at the equipment window. "Morning. You'll be shooting from lane 3. Ammunition's already staged. Weather conditions are posted on the board. Winds running 5 to 7 knots from 270 degrees. Any questions?" "No, Staff Sergeant." "Then let's get you set up." Sarah signed for her weapon and ammunition, then moved to lane 3. The shooting position was a concrete pad with sandbags available for support. Downrange, she could see the target berms at various distances marked with colored flags. 300 meters, 500, 700, and 1,000. She began setting up her equipment with deliberate care. Rifle position, ammunition layout, data book, rangefinder. Everything had its place, and she put it there with the kind of precision that came from doing it hundreds of times before. Dalton walked past with another SEAL, speaking just loud enough to be heard. "Think she knows which end the bullet comes out of?" His companion laughed. "Give her credit. At least she showed up." Sarah ignored them. She ran through her pre-fire checklist, verifying 0, checking scope adjustments, confirming her data was correct for current conditions. The mechanics of preparation settled her mind, pushing everything else into the background. Carver's voice came through the range speaker system. "All lanes, prepare for qualification course. This will be a timed evolution. Shooters will engage targets at multiple distances from multiple positions. Scoring is based on accuracy within acceptable time limits. Shooters, stand by." Sarah settled into prone position behind her rifle. Through the scope, the 300-meter target came into focus. The wind was light, but present, maybe 6 knots. She adjusted her hold slightly to compensate. Lanes 1 through 4 commenced fire. The crack of rifle shots echoed across the range as multiple shooters engaged. Sarah controlled her breathing, found her natural respiratory pause, and pressed the trigger. The recoil was familiar, comfortable. Through the scope, she saw the hit marker appear center mass on the target. She worked through the 300-meter sequence methodically. 5 shots, 5 hits. The rifle felt good, the scope tracking properly. Her confidence built with each round. Target transition, 500 meters. The wind had picked up slightly. Sarah checked her wind call, adjusted her scope, and re-engaged. The first shot landed slightly right of center. She corrected and fired again. Center hit. 3 more rounds, 3 more hits. From somewhere behind her, she heard Rodriguez's voice. "She's actually shooting decent." Another voice, one she didn't recognize. "Yeah, but wait until she gets to 700. That's where most people start falling apart." Sarah cleared her rifle and moved to the next position. Sitting position, 700 meters. The target was smaller now, the wind more pronounced. She built her position carefully, finding solid bone support, minimizing muscle tension. The scope picture steadied. The first shot at 700 broke clean. Hit. She worked through the string, each shot deliberate and controlled. 4 hits out of 5, with 1 shot landing just outside the scoring ring. Carver's voice came through again. Transition to 1,000-meter position. Shooters will have 3 minutes to engage 3 targets. This is the final evolution. Sarah moved to the final shooting position. 1,000 meters was where equipment limitations and environmental factors compounded every small error. A slight miscalculation in wind, a tiny flinch in trigger press, a moment of unstable position, any of it could turn a good shot into a miss. She built her position with extra care, using sandbags to create maximum stability. Through the scope, the target was small but visible. She ranged it, confirmed the distance, and calculated her adjustments. Elevation, windage, atmospheric conditions. The math played out in her head automatically. The first shot took longer to break than the others. She waited for everything to align, for that perfect moment when the crosshairs settled and her breathing paused and the trigger press was already happening before she consciously decided to shoot. The rifle recoiled. Through the scope, a second later, she saw the hit marker appear. Behind her, someone said, "No way." She loaded another round. The second shot was faster now that she'd confirmed her data. Another hit. The third shot completed the string. 3 for 3 at 1,000 meters. Cease fire, cease fire. All shooters, clear your weapons and step back from the line. Sarah cleared her rifle and stood, her legs slightly stiff from the shooting positions. Her hands were steady. Around her, other shooters were finishing their own courses of fire. Carver walked down the line with a tablet, checking scores. He stopped at each lane, comparing target data with his scoring sheet. When he reached lane 3, he spent longer than he had at the other positions. He looked at the tablet, then downrange at her targets, then back at the tablet. He turned to face the group of SEALs near the operations building. Chun, lane 3. Perfect score at 300 and 500 meters. 4 out of 5 at 700. 3 for 3 at 1,000. Overall qualification score, 94%. The range went quiet. Sarah could see Matthews uncross his arms and step forward slightly. Morrison was smiling, just barely, but enough to notice. One of the SEALs, a lieutenant she hadn't met before, walked over to the scoring board and checked the posted numbers from previous qualification days. He ran his finger down the list, then looked back at Carver. 94 puts her in the top 15% of shooters who've qualified this month. Dalton had stopped talking entirely. Rodriguez stood next to him, arms still folded, but his expression had changed from skeptical amusement to something closer to respect. Carver walked over to Sarah. "Good shooting, Chun. You're qualified for Range 7 access. Check with operations for available range time slots." "Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" "Benning," Sarah said. "And Kandahar. And Helmand." Carver nodded slowly. "Well, you just made my job easier. Now I can tell every overconfident contractor who requests this range that they need to shoot like you to get approved." He walked back toward the operations building. Sarah began breaking down her equipment, packing everything with the same methodical care she'd used to set up. Around her, the other shooters were doing the same, but she could feel eyes on her. The conversation level had dropped. People were watching. Matthews approached, his expression unreadable. "Chun, sir, that was solid shooting." "Thank you, Colonel." He looked like he wanted to say something else, something about assumptions or misjudgments, but instead he just nodded and walked away. Morrison came over as she was carrying her rifle case back to the equipment window. "Told you they'd be watching like hawks." "Yes, sir. Also told you that you'd outscore most of them." He glanced at the scoreboard. 94%. That's not just passing. That's proving a point. "I was just trying to qualify, sir." Morrison smiled. "Sure you were." He started walking toward his vehicle, then called back over his shoulder. "Welcome to Range 7, Chun." Word spread fast on a military base. By that afternoon, half the special operations personnel knew about the contractor who'd posted a 94 on Range 7. By evening, the other half had heard too. Sarah was in the contractor dining facility when she overheard 2 Marines talking at the next table. One of them had his phone out, showing something to his friend. "Says here's some Army contractor smoked the SEAL qual course. 94%. That's higher than half the guys in my platoon." His friend leaned closer to look. "No way. They let a contractor shoot 7? "Apparently." Word is Colonel Matthews tried to block it, but she had an SF voucher. The first Marine scrolled through his phone. Found her name. Sarah Chun. Used to be 18 Bravo before she got out. His friend whistled low. "Special Forces Weapons Sergeant. That explains it." Sarah finished her meal and left before they noticed her sitting 2 tables away. She wasn't interested in becoming base gossip, but she understood how military culture worked. She'd crossed a threshold, and now people would either respect that or resent it. The next morning, she received an email from Carver. Range 7 had open slots on Tuesday and Thursday mornings if she wanted to maintain proficiency. Sarah booked both. When Tuesday arrived, She showed up at 0600 to beat the heat and the crowds. The range was empty except for Carver, who was setting up target frames downrange. He waved when he saw her truck pull in. "You're early. Best time to shoot," Sarah said. "Before the wind picks up." "Smart. You claiming lane 3 again? If it's available, it's yours." Sarah spent the next 2 hours working through drills. She wasn't qualifying today, just maintaining skills. Distance transitions, rapid target engagement, positional changes. The fundamentals that separated good shooting from great shooting. She was halfway through a series of 700-meter shots when another vehicle pulled into the range. 4 SEALs climbed out, including Rodriguez and the bearded SEAL she'd seen before. They gathered their equipment and moved to lanes further down the line. Rodriguez nodded to her as he passed. "Morning." "Morning," Sarah replied. They set up quietly and began their own training. For the next hour, the range was filled with the steady rhythm of precision rifle fire. Sarah focused on her own work, not paying attention to what the SEALs were doing. During a ceasefire to change targets, Rodriguez walked over to her lane. "Mind if I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Where'd you deploy?" "Afghanistan." "Twice." "Kandahar and Helmand." He nodded. "I did 3 tours in Helmand." "Different areas, probably." "What unit?" Sarah hesitated, then decided there was no point in hiding it. "I was attached to 3rd Group. We ran counterinsurgency operations out of Camp Dwyer and Camp Leatherneck." Rodriguez's expression changed. "You were part of the CST program?" "Cultural support team," Sarah confirmed. Female soldiers attached to special forces teams for operations involving local women and children. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. "That's serious work. I knew a couple of CST operators. Tough as nails. It had its moments." The bearded SEAL, whose name Sarah had learned was Patterson, called over from his lane. "Hey, Rodriguez, you asking for shooting tips?" Rodriguez grinned. "Might need them. She outscored me last Friday." Patterson walked over, curious now. "What was your MOS before you went contractor?" 18 Bravo. Patterson's eyebrows went up. "No kidding. You went through the pipeline? Q course, SFAS, all of it. And you left to become a contractor?" Sarah loaded another magazine. "Personal reasons. Family stuff. The flexibility works better for me now." Patterson nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He glanced at her target downrange. "You're grouping tight at 700. What's your wind call?" 5 to 6 knots from the west. "Holding about 0.3 mils right." "We're seeing the same." Patterson studied her setup. "You running the MK-13? "Today I am. I prefer the SR-25 for shorter work, but Carver only had the MK-13 available." "Both solid platforms," Patterson said. "You planning to shoot here regularly?" "Tuesday and Thursday mornings, if the slots stay open." "Good to know. Maybe we'll see you around." He walked back to his lane, and Rodriguez followed. Sarah noticed they weren't treating her like a curiosity anymore. The dynamic had shifted. She was just another shooter on a range now. 2 days later, on Thursday morning, Sarah returned to Range 7. This time, there were more people present. A full SEAL platoon was running qualifications, and several other contractors had shown up to observe. Carver was busy managing multiple lanes at once. Sarah set up in Lane 5, the only available position. Next to her in Lane 4 was Dalton. He glanced over when she started unpacking her gear, but didn't say anything. The friendly mockery from their first encounter had disappeared. They shot in parallel for the first hour, each focused on their own drills. Dalton was good, Sarah noticed. His fundamentals were solid, his groupings consistent. He wasn't just cocky, he had the skills to back it up. During a break, Dalton finally spoke. "So what brings a former SF weapons sergeant to contractor work?" "You could have stayed in, made warrant officer eventually." "Could have," Sarah agreed. "Didn't want to." "Why not?" She checked her rifle while she answered. 8 years was enough. I wanted to travel without deployment schedules. Wanted to choose where I worked. Contract life gives me that. Dalton nodded. "I get it. Had a few buddies go that route." He paused. "Look, I'll be straight with you. When you first showed up asking for range access, I thought it was a joke." "I know, but you posted in 94. That's not a joke. That's legitimate skill." Sarah looked at him. "You would have done the same if I'd posted a 70. "Maybe," Dalton admitted, "but you didn't post a 70. They resumed shooting. An hour later, as Sarah was packing up her equipment, Carver approached with his tablet. Chun, got a request for you. We're running an advanced marksmanship course next month for mixed service personnel. Marines, Army, couple of SEALs. I'm looking for experienced shooters to help demonstrate techniques. Interested? What would it involve? 3 days. You'll be running lanes, demonstrating proper positions, coaching on wind calls. Paid contractor rate. Sarah considered it. Sure. Send me the details. Will do. Carver glanced at her target data on his tablet. Also, for what it's worth, your groupings today were tighter than Friday. You're still improving. Just staying current, Staff Sergeant. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. As Sarah drove off base that afternoon, she thought about how much had changed in 2 weeks. She'd gone from being dismissed as an inexperienced contractor to being asked to help instruct military personnel. The respect wasn't universal yet, but it was growing. Her phone buzzed with a text from Morrison. Heard you're helping with the marksmanship course. Well done. Told you things would get interesting. Sarah smiled and put the phone away. Interesting was one word for it, but she'd take interesting over being dismissed any day. The advanced marksmanship course was 3 weeks away, but Sarah's routine had already changed. She wasn't just another contractor on base anymore. People recognized her. SEALs nodded when they passed her. Marines asked questions about her shooting background. The transformation wasn't dramatic, but it was real. She continued her Tuesday and Thursday range sessions, and each time she showed up, more people were present. Some came to train. Others came to watch. Sarah ignored the attention and focused on her work. One Thursday morning, she was setting up in Lane 3 when Colonel Matthews appeared. He'd been absent from the range since her qualification day, but now he stood near the operations building, observing the morning's activity. Sarah noticed him watching her setup, but didn't acknowledge it. She had work to do. Halfway through her session, Matthews walked down to her lane. He stood back far enough not to interfere, but close enough to observe. Sarah continued shooting, working through a drill that involved rapid transitions between targets at different distances. The colonel watched in silence. When she cleared her rifle for a target check, Matthews spoke. You make it look easy. Sarah glanced at him. It's not easy, sir. It's just practice. How often were you shooting when you were active duty? Depends on the deployment. Sometimes daily. Sometimes we go weeks without range time, then do intensive training blocks. Matthews nodded, still watching her targets downrange. I looked up your service record after your qualification. You didn't mention you were in hunter school. Sarah began reloading magazines. Didn't seem relevant, sir. Hunter school, for those who don't know, is where the Army trains its advanced snipers. Matthews continued. Top 5% of your class. 2 combat deployments. Multiple enemy Kias credited to your spotter team. Sarah didn't respond. Her service record spoke for itself. I owe you an apology, Matthews said. When you first came in my office, I made assumptions based on incomplete information. That was wrong. You were protecting your range, sir. I understand that. Still, Matthews said, I could have handled it better. He paused. Carver tells me you're helping with a marksmanship course next month. Yes, sir. Good. We need more instructors who actually know what they're doing. Too many people think they can shoot because they qualified once 5 years ago. Sarah resumed her shooting position. Is there something specific you needed, Colonel? Actually, yes. Matthews pulled out his phone and showed her a document. We're hosting a joint service competition in 2 months. Mixed teams, precision rifle focus. I'd like you on a base team. Sarah, read the competition details. What does the team composition look like? For shooters. Currently, I have 3 SEALs confirmed. I need a 4th. Why me? Because you're one of the best shooters on this base, Matthews said simply. And because having a contractor on the team sends a message that we value capability over service branch or status. What's the competition format? Unknown distance targets, ranging from 500 to 1,500 meters. Teams get 1 hour to engage as many targets as possible, scored on hits and time. Sarah considered it. I need to verify it doesn't conflict with my contract obligations. Already checked with your program manager. You're cleared if you want to participate. Then yes, sir. I'm in. Matthews nodded. First team practice is next Tuesday at 1400. Don't be late. He walked away, and Sarah returned to her shooting. The invitation was significant. Matthews wasn't just acknowledging her skill anymore. He was actively including her in activities that mattered to the base's reputation. That afternoon, Sarah received an email with the competition team roster. The 3 SEALs were Rodriguez, Patterson, and a senior chief named Mackenzie, who she hadn't met yet. The email included practice schedules and competition prep requirements. She replied, confirming her participation, then spent the next hour researching the competition format and previous year's results. The event was serious business. Multiple bases competed, and winning carried real bragging rights within the special operations community. Tuesday came quickly. Sarah arrived at Range 7 at 13:45 and found the 3 SEALs already present. Rodriguez and Patterson she knew. Mackenzie was older, probably early 40s, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in the field. Mackenzie extended his hand. Sarah Chun? Yes, Senior Chief. Call me Mac. Heard good things about your shooting. Thank you. Patterson was setting up equipment on a large table. We'll be running team drills today. Mac's the team lead, so he'll coordinate our movements and target assignments. Mac pulled out a range card with multiple targets marked. Competition format is 4 shooters, 1 spotter with a high-powered scope. Targets appear at random distances. We need to find them, range them, and engage them faster than the other teams. Sarah studied the range card. What's the target size variation? IPSC silhouettes at close range, down to 8-inch plates at extreme distance. Mac pointed to several marked positions. We'll rotate shooter and spotter roles during practice so everyone gets comfortable with both. They spent the next 3 hours working as a team. The dynamics were different from individual shooting. Communication mattered. Target priority decisions mattered. Efficient transitions between shooters mattered. Sarah found herself adapting to the team rhythm, learning how Rodriguez called wind, how Patterson preferred to range targets, how Mac coordinated everything with minimal words and maximum efficiency. During a water break, Patterson approached her. You're keeping up pretty well. Some people struggle with team shooting after doing solo work. Team movements were part of my training, Sarah said. Different context, but same principles. What was your spotter like downrange? Good. We worked together for 18 months. Developed a rhythm. Patterson nodded. That's what we need to build here. 2 months isn't much time, but if we practice consistently, we can be competitive. The sun was setting when they finally wrapped up. Mac gathered everyone near the equipment table. Good first practice. Sarah, you're solid on fundamentals, and you communicate clearly. That's exactly what we need. Rodriguez added. She also spots well. Caught that wind shift at 1,200 meters before I did. We'll practice twice a week until the competition, Mac said. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1,400 hours. Questions? No one had any. As they packed equipment, Patterson walked alongside Sarah toward the parking area. You know, when Matthews first said he was putting a contractor on the team, I thought it was a political move. Diversity optics or something. And now? Sarah asked. Now I'm glad you're here. You make us better. Sarah loaded her gear into her truck. That's the goal, right? Make the team better. Yeah, Patterson said. But not everyone sees it that way. Some of the other SEAL teams are pretty traditional. They're not going to like seeing a contractor on our competition roster. Let them be unhappy. We'll let our scores do the talking. Patterson grinned. See, that's exactly the right attitude. This is going to be fun. Sarah drove back to the contractor housing, thinking about the practice session. The team dynamic felt right. They communicated well, trusted each other's calls, and moved efficiently through drills. 2 months of practice would be enough to become truly cohesive. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mac. Good work today. See you Thursday. She replied with a simple acknowledgement, then went inside to clean her equipment and prepare for the next session. The competition was 60 days away, and she intended to be ready. The weeks leading up to the competition fell into a steady rhythm. Sarah balanced her regular contractor duties with twice-weekly team practices. Each session revealed more about how her teammates worked, their strengths, their habits under pressure. Mac was methodical, the kind of shooter who never rushed but never wasted time. Rodriguez was aggressive, preferring rapid engagement over careful calculation. Patterson fell somewhere in between, adapting his style based on conditions. Sarah found herself filling whatever role the team needed in any given moment. 3 weeks before the competition, another team arrived for a joint training session. They were from a base in Virginia, a SEAL unit with a strong reputation in marksmanship competitions. Their team leader, a lieutenant named Briggs, had won the event 2 years running. Briggs and his team set up on the opposite end of Range 7. Sarah noticed them watching her team during practice, paying particular attention to her. During a break, Briggs walked over to where Mac was reviewing target data. "Heard you put a contractor on your team this year." Mac didn't look up from his tablet. "That's right. Interesting choice." Briggs glanced towards Sarah. "No offense meant, but competitions like this are usually won by people with years of team training. Contractors don't typically have that background." "This one does," Mac said evenly. Briggs smiled. "Well, good luck with that." He walked back to his team. Patterson had overheard the exchange. "Guy's a piece of work. He's won twice," Rodriguez pointed out. "He's got room to be confident." "Confident is fine," Max said. "Condescending is something else." He looked at Sarah. "You hear that?" "Yeah. Bother you?" Sarah shook her head. "I've heard worse." "Good. Because we're going to beat his team, and when we do, I want you taking the shot that puts us ahead." The Virginia team stayed for 3 days of joint training. The atmosphere was competitive but professional, both teams pushing each other to improve. Sarah noticed that Briggs' team was legitimately skilled. Their communication was crisp, their target transitions smooth. They'd earned their reputation. On the final day of joint training, the two teams ran a practice competition using the same format as the actual event. Unknown distance targets, 1-hour time limit, scored on hits and speed. Mac gathered his team before the drill started. "All right, we practiced this. Sarah, you're starting as primary spotter. Rodriguez takes first shots. Patterson, you're backup spotter. I'll coordinate and take shots as needed. Stay sharp, communicate clearly, and trust each other." They moved into position. The range officer called the start, and immediately Rodriguez began scanning for targets through his scope. Sarah worked the spotting scope, searching for the small silhouettes and plates scattered across the range. "Got one," she said. 700 meters, approximately. Left edge of the large berm. Rodriguez shifted his aim. "Confirmed. Ranging now." 703 meters, Sarah called after checking her rangefinder. "Wind 3 to 4 knots from the east." Rodriguez adjusted and fired. "Hit. Target down." They worked through the targets systematically, Sarah calling positions and ranges while Rodriguez engaged. When they reached the 15-minute mark, they rotated positions. Patterson took over spotting while Sarah moved to shooter. The transition was smooth. Patterson fed her target information, and she engaged rapidly but carefully. At the 30-minute mark, they'd hit 23 targets. The Virginia team was at 25. Mac's voice cut through. "We need to pick up pace. Sarah, you and Patterson start taking simultaneous shots on different targets. I'll spot for both of you." They accelerated. Sarah found targets on the left side of the range, while Patterson engaged the right. Mac coordinated between them, his voice calm and precise. The strategy worked. By 45 minutes, they'd pulled even with Virginia at 34 targets each. The final 15 minutes became a race. Both teams pushed hard, searching for every remaining target. Sarah spotted a small plate at 1,100 meters, barely visible against the hillside. "Got a tough one," she said. 1,100, center of the northern ridge. 8-inch plate. Mac looked through his scope. "Confirmed. That's a low percentage shot. Virginia probably won't even attempt it." "Then we should," Sarah said. Mac nodded. "Take it." Sarah built her position carefully, calculating wind drift and elevation drop. The plate was small at that distance, requiring perfect execution. She controlled her breathing, let the crosshairs settle, and pressed the trigger. 2 seconds later, the impact was visible through the spotting scope. "Hit." Patterson hooped. "That's 38 for us. Virginia's at 37. "Keep moving," Max said. Still time left. They found 2 more targets in the final minutes, ending with 40 total hits. Virginia finished at 39. The range officer called time. Both teams cleared their weapons and gathered near the operations building to review scores. Briggs looked at the final tally and shook his head. 40 hits. That's a strong run. His eyes moved to Sarah. Looks like your contractor can shoot. She can, Mac agreed. Briggs extended his hand to Sarah. Solid work. Especially that 1100-meter plate. Most people wouldn't have even attempted it. Thank you. He turned back to Mac. See you at the actual competition. Should be a good match. After the Virginia team left, Mac gathered his own team. That was exactly what we needed. We proved we can compete with the best teams out there. Rodriguez grinned. That 1100-meter shot was clutch. Put us over the top. Team effort, Sarah said. You guys found most of those targets. Patterson clapped her shoulder. Take the compliment, Chun. That was a hell of a shot. They spent another hour reviewing the practice competition, identifying areas to improve. Mac made notes on his tablet, marking sections where their communication had been unclear or target transitions had taken too long. As they were packing up, Colonel Matthews appeared. He'd been watching from the observation area. Heard you beat Briggs' team. Practice run, sir, Mac said. But yeah, we beat them. Matthews looked at Sarah. That plate shot at 1100. I was watching through binoculars. Didn't think anyone would attempt it. High risk, high reward, Sarah said. Smart shooting knows when to take risks and when to play it safe, Matthews said. You're learning to read the competition. That's good. He walked away, and Rodriguez nudged Sarah. Colonel doesn't give compliments easily. You're making progress. The progress wasn't just with Matthews. Over the following weeks, Sarah noticed more changes. SEALs asked her opinion on equipment choices. Marines invited her to join in formal shooting sessions. Even Carver started consulting her on-range setup for certain training exercises. The transformation wasn't universal. Some people still viewed her as an outsider, a contractor who didn't truly belong in military spaces. But those voices were quieter now, drowned out by the growing recognition of her capability. 2 weeks before the competition, Mac called a team meeting at the range. We're as ready as we're going to be. Our scores have been consistently high, our communication is solid, and we work well under pressure. The only thing left is to show up and execute. Patterson raised his hand. Question: are we telling people that Sarah's on the team before we show up, or are we letting it be a surprise? Mac smiled. Let it be a surprise. More fun that way. They practiced twice more before competition day, fine-tuning small details and maintaining their edge. Sarah felt confident. The team functioned like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role and trusting the others to perform. The night before they left for the competition, Sarah received a text from Morrison. Heard you're competing tomorrow. Make them remember why they shouldn't have doubted you in the first place. Sarah smiled and replied, That's the plan, sir. She packed her gear, set her alarm for 04:30, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would determine whether all the practice had been worth it. The competition was held at a sprawling range complex 2 hours north of the base. Sarah rode in Mac's truck with Rodriguez and Patterson, their equipment secured in the bed. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the highway was already busy with military vehicles heading to the same destination. They arrived at 0700. The parking area was filling with teams from 8 different bases representing SEALs, Marine Scout snipers, Army Special Forces, and even a few Air Force Special Tactics units. Everyone brought their A-game to this event. Mac backed into a parking spot near the registration tent. All right, let's get checked in and walk the range. Competition starts at Uninvited, which gives us 90 minutes to prep. They grabbed their gear and headed toward registration. Sarah noticed several people doing double takes when they saw her contractor badge. A female contractor on a competition team wasn't something they expected. At the registration table, a Marine Staff Sergeant checked their roster. Base 7 Charlie, team of 4. He looked up at Mac. You've got Rodriguez, Patterson, McKenzie, and... He paused when he saw Sarah's name. Chun, contractor status. That's correct, Mac said. The Staff Sergeant made a note. First contractor I've seen on a team roster. You aware she won't be eligible for individual awards? She's eligible for team awards, which is all that matters to us. The Staff Sergeant shrugged and handed over their competition packets. Lane assignments and start times are in there. Good luck. They walked toward their assigned lane, passing other teams setting up equipment. Sarah could feel eyes tracking her movement. Conversations quieted as she passed, then resumed at lower volumes. She ignored it all. Their lane was on the northern section of the range, with good visibility across multiple target areas. The course of fire extended from 500 meters out to 1,500, with targets hidden in terrain features and vegetation. Finding them would be half the challenge. Patterson pulled out binoculars and started scanning. I count at least 20 visible targets from this position. Probably another 20 we can't see yet. Rodriguez was setting up their rifles and ammunition. I ran this competition 2 years ago. They hide the high-value targets in the hardest spots. We need to balance easy hits with going after the difficult ones. Max spread out a range map. We'll start with the mid-range targets to build momentum, then push to extremes once we're warmed up. Sarah, you, and Patterson will split primary shooter duties. Rodriguez and I will alternate between spotting and shooting as needed. A voice called out from the adjacent lane. Well, didn't expect to see you here. It was Briggs and his Virginia team, setting up in the lane next to theirs. He walked over with a slight smile. Mac, good to see you again. His eyes moved to Sarah. Brought your secret weapon, I see. She's not a secret, Max said. She's just part of the team. Fair enough. Briggs extended his hand to Sarah. Looking forward to a good competition. May the best team win. They shook hands, and Briggs returned to his lane. His team was already deep into their preparation, moving with the efficiency of people who'd done this many times before. Rodriguez watched them work. They're fast. We're going to have to match their pace. We will, Max said. He checked his watch. 30 minutes to start time. Let's do a final equipment check and get our heads right. Sarah verified her rifle 0, checked her ammunition, and organized her shooting position. Everything needed to be within immediate reach once the clock started. Wasted seconds searching for equipment could cost them the competition. At height 50, the range officer's voice came over the loudspeaker system. All teams to your firing lines. Competition brief in 5 minutes. 8 teams moved into position. Sarah could see the other lanes now, filled with serious shooters wearing uniforms from different service branches. The energy was intense, competitive, but professional. The range officer provided the brief. 1 hour time limit. Targets worth varying points based on distance and difficulty. Steal targets must go down a count. Spotters can use rangefinders and wind meters. Any questions? No one raised their hand. Teams will start in waves based on lane assignments. Lanes 1 through 4 start at Uninvited. Lanes 5 through 8 start at Unarmed. Mac's team was in lane 3, first wave. The range officer continued. Weapons hot when the start signal sounds. Weapons cold when time expires or when you signal completion. Safety violations result in immediate disqualification. Make your shots count. Mac gathered his team for a final huddle. Remember the plan. Communication is key. Trust each other. We practiced this. Now we execute. Sarah settled into her shooting position. Patterson was beside her with the spotting scope. Mac and Rodriguez stood ready to alternate roles as needed. The rifle felt comfortable in her hands, the scope picture clear. The range officer raised his arm. 30 seconds. Sarah controlled her breathing, letting her heart rate settle. This was just another training session. All the fundamentals were the same. Distance, wind, elevation, trigger control. She'd done this 1,000 times. The air horn blasted. Immediately, Patterson started calling targets. 500 meters, center sector. IPSC silhouette. Sarah acquired the target and fired. Hit. Steel went down. 700 meters, left sector. 12-inch plate. She shifted, ranged, adjusted for wind, and fired. Another hit. They moved through the close and mid-range targets rapidly, building score and confidence. Rodriguez took over shooting while Sarah spotted, giving Patterson a break. Mac coordinated everything, tracking which targets they'd hit and which remained. At the 20-minute mark, they'd scored 16 hits. Sarah glanced at the scoreboard visible from their lane. Virginia was at 17. 2 other teams were at 14 and 15 respectively. Mac's voice cut through. We need the hard targets now. Start pushing to long range. Sarah took over as primary shooter. Patterson fed her information on extreme distance targets, the ones most teams would avoid due to low probability of hits. 1,300 meters, far right sector. 8-inch plate partially obscured by vegetation. Sarah found the target, barely visible through her scope. The wind at that distance would be tricky, varying as it crossed different terrain features. She calculated her hold, made her adjustment, and fired. Mississippi impact visible in the dirt 2 feet right. Wind shifted, Patterson said. Try again, hold left. Sarah corrected and fired again. Hit. The plate spun and fell. Rodriguez pumped his fist. That's 18 for us. Stay aggressive. They continued pressing, taking calculated risks on difficult shots. Some hit, some missed, but they were accumulating points faster than the conservative teams who only took high-percentage shots. At 40 minutes, they were tied with Virginia at 26 hits each. The gap between them and the other teams had widened. This was now a two-team race. Matt called out, 1,500-meter target. Ridgeline, center. That's the highest value target on the course. Nobody's attempted it yet. Sarah moved her scope to the ridgeline. The target was barely visible, a small silhouette at the absolute limit of effective range. The wind would be guessing at best. Temperature, humidity, elevation, every factor would compound at that distance. Can you hit it? Mac asked. Maybe, Sarah said. 20% chance. Those are better odds than anyone else has. Take the shot. Sarah built her position with extra care, maximizing stability. She ranged the target multiple times, getting consistent readings at 1,480 meters. The wind was the unknown variable. She watched mirage patterns through her scope, looking for clues. She made her best calculation and fired. The bullet took nearly 3 seconds to reach the target. Through the spotting scope, Patterson watched the impact point. Mississippi, about 5 feet low and 2 feet left. Elevation was close, Sarah said. Wind was wrong. Let me try again. Second shot, Max said. Make it count. Sarah adjusted, holding higher and further right. She pressed the trigger and watched through her scope. The crosshair stayed on target as the rifle recoiled. 3 seconds passed. Hit, Patterson said quietly. Target down. Mac grabbed the radio to report their score to the officials. That's 27 for us. Virginia's still at 26. Rodriguez was searching for more targets. 10 minutes left. Let's not get comfortable. They found 3 more targets in the remaining time, all mid-range shots they'd initially bypassed. Virginia found 2 more. When the time expired, the final score showed Mac's team at 30 hits, Virginia at 28, and the next closest team at 23. The range officer announced preliminary results over the loudspeaker. Top 3 teams advance to the finals round tomorrow. Lane 3 with 30 hits, Lane 4 with 28 hits, and Lane 7 with 23 hits. Mac's team secured their equipment and walked toward the debriefing area. Briggs intercepted them near the parking area. 30 hits. That's the highest score we've seen in 3 years. He looked at Sarah. That 1,500-meter shot was impressive. Most people wouldn't have even tried it. It was a team effort, Sarah said. Briggs nodded. See you tomorrow for finals. Should be interesting. As they loaded equipment back into the truck, Patterson grinned at Sarah. You know, half the teams here are going to be talking about the contractor who hit a target at 1,500 meters. Let them talk, Max said. We still have finals tomorrow. This isn't over yet. The team found a restaurant off base that night and gathered around a corner table. The atmosphere was relaxed but focused. They made finals, but nobody was celebrating yet. Mac ordered coffee and spread out notes from the day's competition. We did good work today. 30 hits put us ahead, but finals tomorrow will be different. New course of fire, harder targets, and every team competing will be sharp. How much harder can they make it? Rodriguez asked. Patterson had competed in finals before. They had moving targets and time constraints. Plus, the target distances extend out to 1,800 meters. It's designed to separate the great teams from the good ones. Sarah listened while reviewing her own notes. The 1,500-meter shot had worked today, but she'd gotten lucky with the wind. At 1,800, luck wouldn't be enough. Mac's phone buzzed. He checked it and smiled. Message from Matthews. Says congratulations on making finals and don't embarrass the base tomorrow. No pressure, Rodriguez said. They finished dinner and headed back to the temporary lodging on base. Sarah spent an hour cleaning her rifle and organizing equipment for the next day. Everything needed to be perfect. Finals meant facing the two best teams from today's competition, plus whatever advantages the course designers had built into the new layout. The next morning arrived cold and overcast. Sarah met her team at 0600 for breakfast. Then they headed to the range complex. More spectators had shown up today, word having spread about the finals. Sarah counted at least 50 people in the observation area, many wearing unit patches from bases that hadn't made the cut. The three finalist teams gathered near the main operations building. Virginia's team looked confident, still wearing the same focused expressions from yesterday. The third team was from Marine Scout Sniper Unit, led by a gunnery sergeant named Torres who had a reputation for aggressive shooting. The range officer called everyone to attention. Finals format is different from qualifications. You'll have 90 minutes instead of 60. Target count is increased to 75 total with varying point values. The highest value targets require coordinated team shots, both shooters hitting simultaneously. Miss either shot and you get no points. Rodriguez leaned toward Mac. Coordinated shots. That's new. The range officer continued. Targets at 1,800 meters are now in play. Wind conditions are variable today, gusting between 8 and 15 knots. Plan accordingly. Lane assignments are posted. Teams move to your positions. Mac's team drew Lane 2, directly between Virginia in Lane 1 and the Marines in Lane 3. The proximity meant they'd be aware of each other's progress throughout the competition. They set up quickly, establishing their shooting positions and organizing equipment. Sarah and Patterson took primary shooter roles again, with Mac and Rodriguez supporting as spotters and backup shooters. The range officer raised his arm. Weapons hot in 60 seconds. Sarah settled behind her rifle, forcing herself to breathe normally. 90 minutes was a long time to maintain focus. She needed to pace herself, stay sharp throughout, not burn out early. The air horn sounded. Patterson immediately started calling targets. 600 meters, 3 targets clustered together. Take them left to right. Sarah engaged rapidly, 3 shots in quick succession. All 3 targets went down. Rodriguez was already spotting the next set. 800 meters, dual plates. Those are coordinated shot targets. Both have to go down within 3 seconds of each first hit. Sarah found her target on the left. Patterson shifted to the right plate. Mac coordinated between them. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire. Both rifles cracked simultaneously. Both plates fell. Rodriguez checked the scoreboard. That's 5 points already. Virginia's at 4, Marines at 3. They pushed through the mid-range targets methodically, building score and momentum. The wind was inconsistent, shifting direction every few minutes. Sarah had to constantly reassess her holds, making real-time adjustments based on what the wind was doing at that exact moment. At 30 minutes, Mac's team had scored 18 targets for 42 points. Virginia was close behind at 40 points. The Marines had fallen slightly back at 36 points. Time to push to extreme range, Mac said. Sarah, there's a target at 1,700 meters on the western ridge. High value but difficult shot. Sarah found the target through her scope. It was smaller than yesterday's 1,500-meter target, and the wind was gusting harder today. She watched the mirage patterns, trying to read the wind between her position and the target. Wind is shifting, Patterson said. I'm seeing 8 to 10 knots, but it's inconsistent. Sarah waited, watching for a lull in the gusts. When the wind briefly settled, she fired. The bullet flight seemed to take forever. Through the spotting scope, Patterson tracked the impact. Hit. High-value target down. That's 12 points. Rodriguez pumped his fist. We're pulling ahead. Stay aggressive. But Virginia wasn't backing down. Their team found 2 high-value targets in quick succession, closing the gap. The competition became a chess match, each team trying to find targets the others hadn't spotted while maintaining accuracy under time pressure. At 60 minutes, the scoreboard showed Mac's team at 71 points, Virginia at 68, and the Marines at 61. 30 minutes remained, and the lead kept shifting. Mac's voice was steady but urgent. We need the 1,800-meter target. That's the highest value shot on the course. 20 points if we hit it. Where is it? Sarah asked. Mac pointed to the far eastern ridge. There, barely visible. Small plate, maybe 6 inches. Sarah moved her scope to the indicated position. The target was so far away, it was difficult to distinguish from the background. The wind would be impossible to calculate accurately at that range. It would be more instinct than science. Virginia's attempting it, Rodriguez said. Briggs is setting up for the shot. They watched as Briggs fired. The impact kicked up dust 3 feet to the left of the target. He missed, Patterson confirmed. Targets still available. Sarah built her shooting position with extreme care. Every detail mattered at this distance. Bone support, muscle relaxation, breathing control, trigger finger placement. She ranged the target multiple times, getting readings between 1,790 and 1,810 meters. The wind was gusting between 10 and 14 knots from the northwest, but that was just at her position. Between here and the target, the wind would do different things at different points. She made her best educated guess and adjusted her scope. Call it, Max said quietly. Sarah watched the wind flags visible at various points downrange. She waited for the conditions to align as closely as possible with her calculated hold. 3 seconds passed. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Then the wind settled slightly, just for a moment. Sarah pressed the trigger. The rifle recoiled. Through her scope, she maintained her position, watching. For seconds passed. 5 seconds. Hit, Patterson said, his voice rising. 1,800 meters. Target down. Mac grabbed the radio. 20-point target confirmed. That puts us at 91 points. Rodriguez was already searching for more targets. 25 minutes left. Don't let up now. Virginia pushed hard in the remaining time, finding several medium-value targets Mac's team had missed. The Marines also accelerated, staying in contention. The final minutes became a frantic search for any remaining targets worth attempting. When the air horn sounded, Sarah cleared her rifle and stepped back from the line. Her shoulders ached from 90 minutes of shooting, and her eyes were tired from staring through the scope. But she felt good about their performance. The range officer took 10 minutes to verify all scores and impacts. The spectator area had grown quiet, everyone waiting for the announcement. Finally, the range officer's voice came over the loudspeaker. Final scores for the Regional Precision Rifle Championship. 3rd place, Lane 3, Marine Scout Sniper Team with 86 points. 2nd place, Lane 1, SEAL Team 4 from Virginia with 94 points. And 1st place, Lane 2, Base 7 Charlie with 98 points. Mac's team had won. Patterson grabbed Sarah in a bear hug. We did it. We actually won. Rodriguez was grinning. That 1,800-meter shot sealed it. 20 points when we needed them most. Mac extended his hand to Sarah. Exceptional shooting. All of you. They walked toward the awards area where the range officer was preparing to present trophies. Briggs intercepted them, offering handshakes all around. When he reached Sarah, he smiled. That 1,800-meter shot was something else. I've competed in this event 6 times, and I've never seen anyone hit that target. First time for everything, Sarah said. Briggs nodded. You've earned this win. No question about it. The awards ceremony was brief, but meaningful. The range officer presented the trophy to Mac, who immediately handed it to Sarah. You take it first. That 1,800-meter shot won this for us. Sarah held the trophy, feeling the weight of it. Around her, the spectators were talking, many of them pointing at her. The contractor who'd hit an 1,800-meter shot. The woman who'd helped win the championship. Colonel Matthews appeared from the crowd, walking straight to their team. He shook hands with each of them, saving Sarah for last. Outstanding performance. All of you. He looked at Sarah directly. Especially you, Chun. You've shown everyone here what capability looks like, regardless of rank or status. Thank you, sir. Matthews lowered his voice slightly. When you first walked into my office asking for range access, I thought you were naive. I was wrong. You've proven that you belong here, and you've earned the respect of every shooter at this competition. Sarah nodded. accepting the acknowledgement. It meant something coming from Matthews, the man who'd initially blocked her request and doubted her capability. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah stood with her team, holding their trophy. Rodriguez threw his arm around her shoulders. You know what the best part of this is? Tomorrow when we get back to base, everyone's going to know. The contractor who said she could shoot wasn't bluffing. Sarah smiled. Tomorrow could take care of itself. Today they'd won. The drive back to base took 3 hours. Mac drove while Rodriguez dozed in the passenger seat. Sarah and Patterson sat in the back with the trophy secured between them. Nobody said much. They were exhausted but satisfied, the kind of tired that came from performing well under pressure. They arrived at Base 7 Charlie just after 1,800 hours. The gate guard saw the trophy in the back seat and waved them through with a grin. Word had already started spreading. Mac dropped everyone off at their respective housing areas. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll debrief with Matthews and figure out next steps. Sarah carried her gear into her small contractor apartment and set the rifle case against the wall. She showered, ate a quick meal, and fell asleep before 2100 hours. The next morning, she woke to 17 text messages. Most were congratulations from people she'd trained with over the past months. Morrison had sent one that simply said, "Told you things would get interesting. Well done." She was walking toward the dining facility when she passed a group of Marines gathered near the gym. One of them recognized her and called out, "Hey, you're the contractor who won the shooting competition." Sarah nodded. "Part of the team that won, yeah. Heard you hit a target at 1,800 meters. That true?" "It's true." The Marine whistled. "That's legitimate skill. Respect." Sarah continued to breakfast, noticing more people looking at her than usual. The base grapevine had been working overtime. By the time she reached the dining facility, 3 more people had stopped her to offer congratulations. At Uninvited, Mac called a team meeting at Range 7. When Sarah arrived, Patterson and Rodriguez were already there, along with Carver and Colonel Matthews. The trophy sat on a table in the operations building. Matthews started the meeting. "First, congratulations again on winning the regional championship. You represented this base exceptionally well." He looked directly at Sarah. "Chun, your performance in particular has generated significant attention. I've received calls from 3 other base commanders asking about our contractor marksmanship program." "We don't have a contractor marksmanship program," Mac pointed out. "Exactly," Matthews said, "which is why I'm recommending we create one. Chun would lead it, training contractors who need precision rifle qualifications for their duties." Sarah was surprised. "Sir, I'm not sure my contract allows for that kind of role. I've already spoken with your program manager. They're willing to modify your contract if you're interested." Patterson leaned forward. "That would be huge. Most contractors never get access to advanced marksmanship training. You could change that." Sarah considered it. Training was different from competing, but she'd enjoyed working with the team, helping them improve. Teaching could be rewarding in its own way. "I'm interested, sir. I need to see the specifics, but yes, I'm interested." Matthews nodded. "I'll have the paperwork sent over. We're looking at starting the first course within 2 months." The meeting continued with competition debrief, analyzing what had worked well and what could improve for future events. After an hour, Matthews dismissed everyone except Sarah. "Chun, walk with me." They left the operations building and headed toward the main range area. Matthews was quiet for a moment, watching the morning training activities. Finally, he spoke. "When you first requested range access, I saw a contractor asking for privileges she hadn't earned. I was protecting my range from someone I assumed would waste everyone's time." "I understand, sir." "No, you don't. Not fully." Matthews stopped walking and turned to face her. "I was protecting the range, but I was also protecting my own biases. I assumed a contractor couldn't shoot at the level required for Range 7. I assumed wrong, and that assumption was based on prejudice, not facts." Sarah didn't respond. She sensed Matthews needed to finish his thought. "You didn't just prove me wrong. You proved me wrong in front of my entire command. Then you won a championship representing this base. You forced me to confront assumptions I didn't even know I was making. Sir, I wasn't trying to prove anything except my own capability." "I know." Matthews started walking again. "That's what makes it more powerful. You weren't making a statement. You were just doing the work. but the statement got made anyway. They reached the spot where Sarah had first qualified months ago. Lane 3 was empty now, waiting for the next shooter. Matthews continued, I've been in the military for 26 years. I've seen thousands of shooters come through ranges like this. You're in the top 5% of anyone I've ever seen shoot, regardless of rank, service branch, or background. That 1,800-meter shot in competition was one of the most impressive displays of marksmanship I've witnessed. Thank you, sir. You've earned respect across this entire base. SEALs who didn't think contractors belonged on tactical ranges are now asking you for advice. Marines who doubted your capability are now studying your techniques. You've changed minds through performance. Sarah looked out across the range. Is that why you want me to lead the contractor training program? Partly, Matthew said, but mainly because you're the best person for the job. You understand what contractors face trying to access military training. You've navigated those barriers, and you have the technical skill to teach effectively. I appreciate the opportunity, sir. Matthews extended his hand. Welcome to the permanent team, Chun. Officially this time. They shook hands, and Matthews walked back toward the operations building. Sarah stood alone on the range, thinking about how much had changed in a few months. She'd gone from being dismissed at a reception desk to being offered a leadership role in a new training program. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dalton, the SEAL who'd bet $20 she wouldn't make it past equipment check. Heard about the championship. Also heard Matthews offered you the training program lead. If you take it, I want to be in your first class. I can learn a few things. Sarah smiled and replied, I'll put you on the list. She spent the rest of the morning at Range 7, working through maintenance drills and helping Carver set up targets for an afternoon training session. A steady stream of personnel stopped by. Many just wanted to see the range where the championship team had trained. Rodriguez appeared around noon with lunch from the dining facility. Figured you'd be here. Brought you food. Thanks. They sat on a bench near the operations building, watching a group of new SEALs run through basic qualifications. Rodriguez pointed at one shooter struggling with a 700-meter target. Kid's got the fundamentals right, but he's overthinking the wind call, fighting the shot instead of trusting his data. Sarah watched the young SEAL fire again, missing right. You should go help him. He's not on my team. Doesn't matter. You know what he's doing wrong. Go fix it. Rodriguez considered that, then stood and walked over to the struggling shooter. Sarah watched him make a few suggestions, demonstrate proper trigger control, then step back. The SEAL tried again and hit the target. His team leader clapped him on the shoulder. That was a teaching moment right there, and Sarah realized she'd just encouraged Rodriguez to do exactly what she'd be doing full-time if she took the training program position. Helping people improve, sharing knowledge, making better shooters. Patterson arrived in the afternoon with news. Just came from admin. Your contract modification is approved. You officially start as contractor marksmanship program lead next month. First course starts 8 weeks from now. That was fast. Matthews pushed it through. Said we needed to get moving before other bases steal you away. Sarah looked around Range 7, the place that had seemed so off-limits just months ago. Now it was essentially becoming her office. The irony wasn't lost on her. Mac showed up at 1600 hours with the trophy. Almost forgot to give you this. Your name's being engraved on it along with the rest of the team. Figured you'd want it for your new office. New office? You're getting an office in the operations building. Can't run a training program from contractor housing. Sarah took the trophy, feeling its weight again. All of this felt surreal. She'd simply wanted range access to maintain her qualifications. Now she was building a program. Mac must have read her expression. You okay with all this? It's a lot of change fast. I'm good. Just processing. You earned it. Every bit of it. Mac checked his watch. Beers at Rodriguez's place in an hour. You coming? Yeah, I'll be there. After Mac left, Sarah sat alone in the operations building, the trophy on the desk in front of her. Through the window, she could see the range extending into the distance, targets at 500, 700, 1,000 meters and beyond. She'd proven she could shoot. Now she'd proved she could teach others to shoot just as well. The doubters were quieter now, replaced by people eager to learn. That was its own kind of victory, maybe more meaningful than any trophy. The weeks following the championship blurred together in a series of meetings, planning sessions, and curriculum development. Sarah found herself spending more time behind a desk than behind a rifle, building the framework for the contractor marksmanship program from scratch. Her new office in the operations building was small but functional. The trophy sat on a shelf next to her Army sniper school graduation photo and a framed map of Helmand Province. The space was beginning to feel like hers. One morning, 3 weeks after the championship, she was reviewing equipment requisition forms when Torres appeared at her door. The same corporal who'd been confused by her initial range request months ago. "Ma'am, got a contractor at the front desk asking about your training program. Says he heard you're accepting applications. Send him back." Torres returned with a civilian in his mid-30s wearing contractor credentials. The man extended his hand. "Mark Sullivan. I'm working logistics support, but I've got a deployment coming up that requires marksmanship certification. Heard you're running a program." "Program starts in 5 weeks," Sarah said. "What's your shooting background?" "Civilian side, I've done some hunting. Military side, basic rifle qualification in the Marines about 8 years ago. Nothing advanced." Sarah pulled out an intake form. "We'll start with fundamentals assessment, then build from there. Program is 12 weeks, 2 sessions per week. You'll need approval from your contract manager." "Already got it." Sullivan handed over a signed authorization form. "I also heard you won the regional championship last month. That true?" "It's true." He smiled. "Good. I want to learn from someone who knows what they're doing." After Sullivan left, Sarah reviewed the growing list of program applicants. She had 15 contractors interested, which was more than enough for a first class. Most had minimal shooting experience, but legitimate need for training. A few, like Sullivan, were facing deployments requiring advanced skills. Carver knocked on her doorframe. "Got time to walk the range? Want to show you the new setup for your training program." They walked out to Range 7, where Carver had established dedicated training lanes separate from the regular qualification areas. The setup included multiple shooting positions, target arrays at varying distances, and a small classroom area for instruction. "This is impressive," Sarah said. "Matthews authorized budget for it. Wants this program to succeed." Carver pointed to the target berms. "I've set up progressive training stations. Students start at 200 meters, work their way back to 800 by program completion." "What about equipment?" 20 new rifles arrived yesterday. Mix of platforms so contractors can train on systems they'll actually use downrange. Carver opened a storage container revealing the weapons. "All secured, all logged. You'll have full access." Sarah inspected one of the rifles, checking the build quality and optics. This was real investment, not just token support. Matthews had put resources behind the program. Over the next 2 weeks, she finalized the curriculum with input from Mack, Rodriguez, and Patterson. They helped design practical scenarios based on real-world contractor requirements. The program wouldn't just teach shooting, it would teach judgment, decision-making under pressure, and how to operate independently. The night before the program started, Sarah received a message from Morrison. "Heard your first class begins tomorrow. Remember, you're not just teaching them to shoot. You're teaching them to belong in spaces that didn't want them, just like you did." The first morning of training arrived cold and clear. Sarah stood near the classroom area at 0700, waiting for her students. They trickled in over the next 15 minutes, a mix of nervous energy and determination. Sullivan was there, along with 14 others. Most were men, but 3 were women, all contractors facing similar barriers Sarah had encountered. They gathered in a semicircle, waiting for instruction. Sarah didn't waste time with long introductions. "I'm Sarah Chen, former Army, Special Forces weapons sergeant, multiple deployments. I run this program because I understand what you're facing. Many of you have been told you can't access this level of training because you're contractors. That changes today." She gestured toward the range. "Over the next 12 weeks, you'll learn precision rifle fundamentals, advanced marksmanship techniques, and how to operate effectively in high-pressure situations. This isn't basic qualification. This is the same training I received in the military, adapted for contractor requirements." One of the students raised his hand. "Is it true you hit a target at 1,800 meters in competition?" "It's true." And by the end of this program, you'll understand how that shot was possible. Not because of luck, but because of proper fundamentals, environmental awareness, and equipment knowledge. She spent the first day covering safety protocols and basic rifle handling. Some students were more experienced than others, but everyone needed baseline assessment. Sarah moved through the group, making corrections, answering questions, demonstrating proper technique. By the afternoon session, they were on the firing line at 200 meters. Sarah watched each student shoot, noting their habits, their strengths, their areas needing improvement. Sullivan showed natural talent, but rushed his shots. One of the women, a contractor named Lisa Martinez, had excellent fundamentals, but lacked confidence. Sarah approached Martinez during a break. "You're shooting well. Groups are tight." Martinez looked surprised. "Really? I feel like I'm behind everyone else." "You're not. Your fundamentals are better than most. You just need to trust yourself more." Over the following weeks, the class progressed steadily. Students who'd struggled initially began hitting targets consistently. Those who'd started with some skill pushed into advanced techniques. Sarah found teaching rewarding in ways she hadn't expected. Watching someone overcome a fundamental flaw and suddenly shoot accurately brought its own satisfaction. One morning, 6 weeks into the program, Colonel Matthews visited the range during training. He stood back, observing silently as Sarah worked with students on 700-meter targets. Martinez had just made 3 consecutive hits, her confidence visibly growing. After the session, Matthews approached Sarah. "Your students are progressing well. They're putting in the work." Matthews watched Martinez and Sullivan breaking down their equipment. 3 of your students have already received deployment orders requiring advanced marksmanship. Their units specifically requested they complete your program first. Sarah hadn't known that. It meant the program's reputation was spreading beyond the base. Matthews continued, "I've also received requests from 2 other bases asking about starting similar programs. They want you to consult on their setup. That could work. Once this class graduates, I'd have time." Matthews nodded. "You've built something significant here, Chun. This program is changing how the military views contractor training." "I'm just teaching people to shoot, sir." "You're doing more than that. You're giving contractors access to training they've been denied. You're proving they can perform at the same level as military personnel when given proper instruction. That matters." After Matthews left, Mack appeared with Rodriguez and Patterson. They've been watching from the observation area. "Your students are looking solid," Mack said. "That Martinez woman is shooting almost as well as you did when you first qualified. She's dedicated. Shows up early, stays late, asks good questions." Rodriguez grinned. "Sound like anyone we know?" Patterson pointed at Sullivan working on his rifle maintenance. "That guy hit a 900-meter target yesterday. First time he'd ever attempted that distance." Sarah felt pride in her students' progress. They'd come to the program with minimal skills and legitimate doubt about their abilities. Now they were hitting targets that most military personnel would struggle with. The weeks continued. Sarah pushed her students harder as they improved, introducing challenging scenarios and time pressure. They learned to shoot from unconventional positions, to adapt to changing wind conditions, to make rapid calculations under stress. On graduation day, all 15 students completed the final qualification. The course of fire was identical to Sarah's original Range 7 qualification. Multiple distances, multiple positions, scored on accuracy and time. Every student passed. 5 scored above 90%. Matthews presented certificates to each graduate in a small ceremony at the range. Carver, Mack, Rodriguez, and Patterson attended, along with Morrison and several other senior officers who'd heard about the program. When Matthews called Martinez forward, he added a comment. "This contractor scored 92% on her final qualification. That places her in the top 20% of all shooters who've qualified on Range 7 this year, military or contractor." Martinez accepted her certificate with tears in her eyes. After the ceremony, she found Sarah. "Thank you. I never thought I could shoot at this level. You always could. You just needed someone to show you how." Sullivan was next, shaking Sarah's hand firmly. "I'm deploying in 3 weeks. I feel prepared now. That's because of what you taught us. One by one, her students thanked her. Sarah accepted their gratitude quietly, knowing the real thanks would come later when they used these skills successfully downrange. As the crowd dispersed, Sarah stood alone on the range where everything had started. The same range where she'd been doubted, where she'd proven herself, where she'd won a championship. Now it was where she'd trained the next generation of contractors to do the same. Rodriguez walked over with a smile. 15 graduates. 0 failures. That's a hell of a first class. They earned it. So did you. Rodriguez looked around the range. You know what's funny? 6 months ago, people didn't think you belonged here. Now you own this place. Sarah smiled. I don't own it. I just show them I belong here. There's a difference. Fair enough, Rodriguez said. But you definitely belong here. Nobody questions that anymore. 3 months after the first class graduated, Sarah stood in her office reviewing applications for the 3rd training cycle. The program had grown beyond anything she'd anticipated. 23 contractors were on the waiting list, and 2 other bases had successfully launched similar programs using her curriculum. The trophy still sat on her shelf, but it had been joined by other markers of success. Graduation photos from 2 completed classes. Letters of commendation from contractors who'd used their training successfully downrange. A plaque from Matthews recognizing her contribution to base readiness. Her phone rang. It was Morrison. Chun, got someone here who wants to meet you. Can you come to my office? On my way, sir. She walked across base to Morrison's building, curious about the mysterious visitor. When she entered his office, she found him talking with a woman in army dress uniform. The woman wore colonel rank and had a special forces tab above her unit patch. Morrison gestured to Sarah. Colonel Vega, this is Sarah Chun. Chun. Colonel Vega commands the Special Warfare Center at Fort Bragg. Vega stood and extended her hand. I've heard impressive things about your contractor training program. Mind if we talk? They sat, and Vega pulled out a tablet. We're developing a new training pipeline at Bragg for contractors supporting special operations. The conventional approach isn't working. Contractors need skills, but can't access military schools. You've solved that problem here. With a lot of support, Sarah said. Vega smiled. I've read the reports. You did more than that. You created a scalable model that produces results. Your graduation rates are higher than some military courses, and your students are performing exceptionally well in operational environments. Morrison added, 3 of Chin's graduates are currently deployed. All 3 have received commendations from their team leaders for marksmanship capability. Vega nodded, which is why I'm here. We want to implement your program at Bragg, and we want you to run it. This would be a permanent position, significantly more resources, ability to train hundreds of contractors annually. Sarah was quiet, processing the offer. Fort Bragg was the center of Army Special Operations. The opportunity was significant. What would the timeline look like? Sarah asked. You'd start in 3 months. We'd give you 6 weeks to set everything up, then launch the first class. You'd have a staff of 4 instructors working under you, full budget authority, and direct support from Special Operations Command. It was the kind of opportunity that didn't come along often. A chance to expand the work she'd started to impact contractor training across the entire Special Operations community. Can I have time to think about it? Of course. Vega handed her a folder. All the details are in here. Take a week, let me know. After Vega left, Morrison looked at Sarah. That's a significant opportunity. I know, but... Sarah looked out the window toward Range 7. I built something here. The program works because people bought into it. If I leave, I want to make sure it continues. It will. Matthews has already identified your replacement. One of your graduates from the first class, actually, Martinez. Sarah smiled. She'd be good at it. So you're considering the Bragg offer? Yeah, I'm considering it. That evening, Sarah drove to Range 7. It was after hours, the range empty and quiet. She walked to Lane 3, the spot where she'd first qualified, where everything had changed. She thought about that first day at the admin building, facing Colonel Matthews' condescending smile, hearing Torres say the range wasn't for contractors. She thought about the SEALs betting against her, the doubts, the assumptions. Then she thought about what had happened since. The qualification, The championship. The training program. 15 graduates in the first class, 18 in the second. Students who'd arrived believing they weren't good enough, leaving with skills that matched or exceeded military standards. She'd proven that contractors could shoot at elite levels when given proper training and access. She'd changed minds not through argument, but through performance. And now she had the opportunity to do it on a larger scale. Her phone buzzed. It was a group message from Mac, Rodriguez, and Patterson. Heard about the brag offer. Whatever you decide, we support you. But you should know we'll miss shooting with you. Sarah smiled and typed a response. Haven't decided yet. But thanks. She spent another hour at the range, thinking about the decision. Fort Bragg meant leaving the team she competed with, leaving the range where she'd overcome so much doubt. But it also meant expanding the impact, helping more contractors access training that could save their lives downrange. The next morning, she scheduled a meeting with Matthews. When she arrived at his office, he was expecting her. You're here about the Bragg offer. Yes, sir. How did you know? Vega called me after your meeting. Wanted my assessment of your capability for the position. Matthews leaned back in his chair. I told her you're the best person for the job, and that I'd be furious if she didn't offer it to you. Sarah was surprised. Sir, the program here still needs leadership. Martinez can handle it. She's learned from you, and she has the right temperament for teaching. Matthews pulled out a file. I've already drafted her promotion paperwork. She'll transition into your role when you leave. You're pushing me to take the job. I'm pushing you to recognize when you've outgrown a position. You built something exceptional here, Chun. But Fort Bragg gives you the platform to build something exceptional for the entire special operations community. You'd be foolish to turn that down. Sarah considered his words. What about the team? The competition roster for next year? Already handled. Martinez will compete in your slot. She's qualified, and honestly, she might be better than you in a year or two. That made Sarah smile. High praise coming from you. Sir, it's earned. Matthews stood and extended his hand. Take the Bragg position, Chun. Go do for hundreds of contractors what you did here. Sarah shook his hand. Thank you, sir, for everything. For eventually giving me a chance, for supporting the program, for pushing me to be better. Matthews nodded. You forced me to confront my own biases and made me a better officer in the process. That's worth more than any trophy. Sarah spent the next few days tying up loose ends, ensuring the program would continue smoothly under Martinez's leadership. She met with each of her current students individually, explaining the transition and introducing Martinez as the new lead instructor. Martinez was nervous about taking over. You've set a high standard. People expect excellence now. Then meet that expectation. You've got the skills, you've got the knowledge, and you've got the support structure. Sarah handed her a thick binder. Everything I've learned about running this program is in here. Use it, improve it, make it yours. On her last day at Base 7 Charlie, Sarah returned to Range 7 one final time. Mac, Rodriguez, Patterson, Carver, Torres, Matthews, Morrison, and both classes of program graduates had gathered for an informal send-off. Mac presented her with a custom rifle case engraved with her name and the base designation. Something to remember us by, Rodriguez added, and to remind those Bragg people that you came from here first. Patterson handed her a framed photo of the championship team. All four of them on the podium, holding the trophy. We're still defending the title next year. Just so you know, Matthews stepped forward with a small wooden plaque. On behalf of Base 7 Charlie, thank you for changing how we think about contractors, about capability, and about who belongs in military spaces. Sarah accepted the plaque, reading the inscription. Sarah Chun, who proved that skill transcends status. Her words echoed through the range, carried by the wind across the distances where she'd first demonstrated her capability. She looked at the assembled group, these people who'd gone from doubters to supporters, from skeptics to friends. I came here just wanting range access. You gave me that and so much more. You gave me a team, a purpose, and the chance to help others face the same barriers I faced. Thank you. As the gathering dispersed, Sarah took one last walk down the range lanes. She passed lane 3, remembering that first qualification. She passed the 1,000-meter berm, remembering the championship. She passed the classroom area where she'd taught her students. Everything had changed since that first day at the admin desk. The smirking colonel had become a mentor. The doubting SEALs had become teammates. The closed range had become her proving ground and ultimately her legacy. Martinez walked up beside her. "You ready for Bragg?" "Ready as I'll ever be. They're lucky to have you." Martinez looked across the range. "We were lucky to have you too." Sarah smiled. "The work continues, just in a different location." She drove off base that evening with her truck loaded with personal gear, the trophies secured in the passenger seat, and a folder full of plans for Fort Bragg on the dashboard. The sun was setting behind the ranges, casting long shadows across the desert floor. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Dalton. "Still owe you $20 from that bet about equipment check. Guess I'll be paying it when you make your first visit back. Bring it when you come back to defend the championship." Sarah laughed and replied, "I'll collect, and we will defend it." As she merged onto the highway, she thought about the journey. From being dismissed as an inexperienced contractor to building a program that would train hundreds. From facing condescension to earning genuine respect. From fighting for access to creating access for others. The road ahead led to Fort Bragg and new challenges, but the lessons from Base 7 Charlie would stay with her. Capability mattered more than credentials. Performance spoke louder than promises. And sometimes the people who doubted you most could become your strongest supporters if you simply showed them what you could do. She accelerated into the evening, ready for whatever came next.